There has always been a lot of speculation as to why Barry Sanders retired. And they're on Prime TV right now. There is a documentary about Barry Sanders called Bye Bye Barry, which I watched, and it was an amazing documentary. It talked about his family and his dad and him having 10 brothers and sisters, and it went into a deep dive of his life, going into Oklahoma State, winning the Heisman Trophy, and going on to be one of the arguably the best running back to ever play in the NFL. Arguably. And it gave a deep dive into who Barry Sanders actually was. He was a very quiet guy. He didn't want a lot of attention. He didn't want to get any special treatment that his teammates weren't getting. He was just when he didn't do any celebrations when he scored touchdowns. He just scored a touchdown, gave the ball to the ref, went to the sideline. And he wasn't very flashy. He went out there and Woody Harrelson was actually in the documentary, and he said that it was like he was an actor from action to cut. That's what you got. He was in scene. But after cut, that's it for him. He said, Woody Harrelson said, I can agree with that because that's the type of guy that I am, because I'm in my element between action and cut. But after that, that's all you getting. So when he had that ball in his hand, it was action. When he got into that pay dirt in that end zone, or when he got tackled, it was cut. So it was like, but he was on that field. He was one of the greatest football players to ever play the game, and there was always a aura around him about why he retired at the prime of his career. And D-Lo, you said you hadn't watched it, but I watched it. I still don't know from the documentary why he did it, but he gave a little bit more of an explanation as to why, and it's because leading up to him retiring, and I know I'm going long. I'm gonna pass it to you in a second, D-Lo, my bad. But
no, it's all good. I didn't watch it, so it's on you anyway.
So leading up to being in his 10th year of the league, but leading up to that 10th year, they went into a unneeded rebuilding stage. They gave away 3 of his offensive linemen. They traded away a couple of defensive backs, traded away a couple of receivers. So they all they had was Barry, and they were trying to rebuild around Barry, which is cool. But they were coming off a really good stretch of going to the playoffs, getting to an NFC championship, doing very, very well with the core that they had. And when they were explaining everything, they were like, a lot of guys just became victim of the salary cap, and they let guys go. And they tried to rebuild around Barry, but it got to a point where they had 2 or 3 years within that rebuild that Barry was like, they gave away a lot of my friends. They gave away a lot of the corporate guys on the team. They gave away a lot of people who I was very close with that made this team go. And to have guys come in to replace them that either weren't as good or I didn't have that same kind of chemistry with was hard to deal with. And I can understand that. And he was literally 1,400 yards away from breaking Walter Payton's record, about to be the number 1 rusher in the history of the NFL, and retired. And a lot of people didn't know why he did it. And the crazy thing about him retiring is that he went to London and sent a fax that he was retiring under the name B. Abernathy. Not Barry Sanders, B. Abernathy. And he went to London for 2 days, sent the fax, and he was done with the game. And it was such a shock to not just Detroit, which a lot of Detroit people say that him retiring was worse than a lot of Lions fans would say his retirement was worse than the decision that LeBron did, to be perfectly honest with you. A lot of guys do say that. But it's like he left a lot of those guys. Eminem was in it, and he said, dude, literal tears and betrayal. It's like that's what I felt, was sadness and betrayal. And he finally came. He's back in Detroit, and he still lives in Detroit, and he does a lot of things in the community, and he apologizes all the time to the fans. But he just said it was just something that he couldn't deal with, and he wasn't feeling the love of the game anymore. It was kind of like Michael Jordan, like he just wasn't feeling like he had anything else to accomplish. He didn't feel like he was loving what he was doing anymore, so he left and did something that he felt like he was in love with, which is baseball. But then came back to the game because he actually felt like he loved the game. Barry was like, I'm standing on business. I'm leaving. I ain't coming back. You know what I'm saying? So it was such a great documentary from his rookie year to going over 1,000 yards for 10 straight seasons, from rookie year to year 10 when he retired, to going over 2,000 yards for the first time, 2,053 yards, to literally getting a season 1,400 yards away from passing Walter Payton. And it was a great timeline of how he was brought up to how he is now, having 4 sons and them trying to build his legacy as well. It's just like, it was great, man. And it's something that I think you should watch. And that's something I think the audience should actually watch too, if you have Prime TV, if you are a sports fan, to say, if you have questions about why he retired, it didn't really answer it, to be perfectly honest. But at the same time, it was good because it gave you an insight as to why he felt he couldn't play the game anymore. And he just said it was something that he just couldn't deal with. So I think it was great. Yeah. I think it was great.
Yeah, I mean, not seeing it, I can't say much, but based off of your synopsis of the video of the documentary, I feel like we as fans, or fans that have not been a part of high caliber sports, most of us, most Americans have been a part of some type of sports, whether that's high school, little league, something, I'm sure. And so for us that have been a part of high caliber sports, we kind of get it when, we still question it, but we kind of get it sometimes when a person decides that to do the things they do within the sport, whether that's retire, move on to another team, whatever the case may be, we get it. But for those that have not been, they take these type of things to heart because they put these individuals on pedestals.
100%.
And so when you put somebody on a pedestal and then they no longer are a part of the team that you celebrate, that you worship, it's like they are portraying you individually, and that's not the case. They're making the decision that's best for them. And again, we don't know the real reason why Barry decided to retire. I was always under the assumption of what you mentioned earlier on, is like they were going through unnecessary rebuilds and trading a lot of his friends,
for sure,
who he probably considers family, or, just trading away valuable pieces that could help them get over that hump. Because Barry was a no nonsense guy. He was a guy that was all about winning. And and he might have been the centerpiece, but the centerpiece also needs to be surrounded by other pieces in order to be successful. And I'm sure Barry understands that. And so I will watch the documentary just to get another perspective. It sounds kind of like it took the storyline somewhat of A Football Life from NFL Network that they did on Barry Sanders.
Somewhat.
But I definitely would watch it because I love Barry Sanders. Was one of my favorite players growing up, and I actually was a fan of the Detroit Lions just because of him. And then when he left, I didn't pick up another team. So yeah, I definitely will watch it, and I'm glad you brought it up as a topic because the fans probably should take a look at it as well.
For sure. And it's crazy you say that because growing up, I was a fan of Barry Sanders too, because dude's change of direction, his speed, his
unmatched
agility has never been seen before. Never been seen before unmatched. Or after. Even now, you don't even see guys with the same change of direction, speed, agility, spin move, stiff arm. The way he just slithered, bro, he was amazing. And it's crazy that I say that. I was a fan of Barry Sanders because arguably the best running back to ever play football played for the Cowboys in Emmitt Smith. So, yeah. And they both got drafted. I think they both got drafted in the same draft.
I think Barry came out the year before Emmitt.
The year before? Okay. So Emmitt,
I think I'll look it up.
Yeah, look at it real quick. But my favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys, had arguably the best running back in the history of NFL as well, because even Emmitt was in the documentary saying that he was surprised that Barry retired because that was a guy that could have rushed for 25,000 yards and shattered the record. So
Barry came out
it's
in
crazy.
'89. Emmett came out in '90.
Emmett came out in '90. Okay, bet. Because I knew just from watching the documentary, I knew Barry came out in '89. I thought they came out the same season, but that was Aikman that came out in '89 with Barry. So, but it's just crazy, man, because he was such a good player, bro. He was such a good player, and to just leave the game without warning, without explanation. And but everybody in the documentary was saying, like, if you knew Barry, you knew he didn't want that attention. You knew he won't going to have no press conference. You knew he won't go and stand out in front of the community and say, this is what's going on. You knew he won't going to do that. So why everybody is surprised that he took the route that he did to retire, you shouldn't. It's crazy because you shouldn't be. Because from high school all the way up to the NFL, he was never that guy that wanted that kind of attention. He didn't even want to win the Heisman Trophy. He was in Japan at a football game that Oklahoma State had scheduled because they didn't think anybody on the team was going to be around for the Heisman. But he came out of nowhere his junior year, and he was literally on camera like this. And when he won it, he was like, because he was like, I hope he literally said, I hope somebody else win it because I don't want that attention. He didn't care. He didn't care for individual accolades. He was, like D'Lo said, he was no nonsense. He was about the team winning. He was about team success, and opposed to his own individual success. And that was very admirable of Barry. And that's what made him even more great than he was on the field, is because his off the field character just shined so much because he was so much about just the team itself. So I think everybody here should definitely check it out. If you are a sports fan, if you are a football fan, definitely go look at it because it is definitely a great watch. And if you have any questions as to why he retired, you ain't gonna get it out of this because I still like, I understand more as to why, but he didn't necessarily give a reason, if that makes sense. But
yeah,
the frustration was definitely there. And if the frustration mounts up too much and it starts to boil over, I can understand why you would want to walk away from a situation. So that's what I got from it. But it didn't give a clear, concise reason. This is why. You know what I'm saying? So, but it was definitely a good timeline in the documentary. I think it was great. Oh, y'all still here? That means y'all must like the content then. And if that's the case, go ahead and click on that video right here. We think you're going to love this one as well. And we still got the 500 subscriber goal. Help us get to that. Hit that subscribe button right there on the screen too. And we on all your streaming platforms, wherever you find your podcast.